Very excited to have you here today. We're focused on the CEO role for this podcast. I think it's an area that hasn't been covered as much, and I think there's a lot of untold stories about the role. Happy to have you here today.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Jimmy.
Awesome. So let's start with a brief summary. What's Airbyte? Tell me about the company and the product.
Sure. Airbyte is an open source data movement platform that helps you sync data from any API source, files, database, or warehouse to your warehouse databases. And we have an open source approach that offers extreme extensibility that all the teams need because you always have custom sources and also full security and control that comes with open source and being able to either cloud host or self-host your pipelines.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your fundraising story. There's been a lot of coverage, articles on the fundraising journey. This is covered already, but I think it's still quite fascinating for this audience. So I was thinking if you could briefly summarize that journey for us here.
So we started working on Airbyte in July 2020 and released a very first version of it in October. When we released that version, we started being reached out a ton by investors. It resonated a lot with them. We didn't want to take calls. We wanted to focus on the product for the moment. We anticipated to have a zero point 0.2 in November, and we told them we might be open to talk to you 2 weeks after this estimate for our zero point 0.2, and we time boxed all those calls 2 weeks after. We saw that what happened is that we had calls with 45 different investors in those 2 weeks, and that helped a ton in the sense that there was a lot of FOMO. Everybody knew that we were talking to everybody. And so they needed to be fast if they wanted to invest. And even we talked with Axel, who led our seed round. They were like call number 42. It was Amit Kumar, our partner at Axel. And so when we told him he was a number 42 call, so at that point, it helped accelerate the discussions, and it took 1 week to close the seed round. So we did a 3 million with them for a total of 5 million round for the seed that we announced in February. And at that point in February, one of the top VC at the stage we were was really Benchmark. And Benchmark reached out to us just after the seed round because they missed it. We discussed with them for 3-4 weeks, and at that point, we asked them, okay, what do you want to do? Because we can continue discussing, but are we talking about something here? And they told us, yeah, let's do a Series A. And so we didn't talk to anybody else than Benchmark for the Series A. When we did the seed round and talked to those 45 investors, our goal was to make our list of investors that we were interested to work with. We didn't want to continue discussing with 45 of them. So we made a list of 5 to 10 investors that we liked. And our goal was to continue the relationship with them post the seed round. But Benchmark wasn't in the list because we didn't talk to them. But Benchmark was our number one. So my advice would be first choose with who you want to work and then optimize on valuation. Don't optimize on valuation with whoever you want to work with. First choose your partner because they will stay with you for a long time, so they can contribute a lot of value. At that point, talking with Chetan Putagunta, we asked him, so for the fun story, we asked him, if we're talking about Series A, can you give us a reference for companies that work with Benchmark that succeeded, one that didn't really succeed, so it did medium, let's say, and that one that didn't succeed at all. He gave us 2 that succeeded and 1 that didn't succeed that much. We couldn't find one that didn't succeed at all. But we discussed with 4 companies, 3 or 4th one that we did a back channel ourselves on. For us, like the referral was very astonishing in the sense that there was Mongo, there was Elastic, so huge companies for us where we're doing open source on data. So those are the best open source data companies in the world. So talking to them was pretty awesome, and learning that Chetan was instrumental to their success. It was an easy decision to make at that point. We knew we wanted to work with Benchmark, and we just closed the Series A. And for the Series B, what happened is that in November 2021, so in the same year, we're not optimistic on 2022 on the market and all. And so we thought, okay, you know what? Let's try the Series B now. All the metrics are great. And let's do it in this manner, which is we will raise the Series B end of next year. That's the plan. But if you want to join early and do it now, we're fine doing it now, but only if we have the same valuation as next year's. And same at that point, we knew with which VCs want to talk to for that. So we talked with 7 or 8 VCs, and like in 2 weeks it was done. Same. And yeah, that's how it happened. And in the Christmas Eve, we wanted to announce the Series B, which we closed on the 20th of December, but we wanted to announce it in February. And the 24th of December, we received a text from our PR firm. I was back in France, wanted to celebrate Christmas with family. And it was like 7 p.m. and received a text, your Series B is being leaked. It's going to Forbes in 2 hours. And so at that point, it's okay, let's get in contact with the journalist, try to reason with them and say, okay, can you wait 1 or 2 weeks, please? As they want to be the first one to release the story. And then at that point, it's all about controlling a bit the story and make sure that what they're saying is not wrong. The issue is doing that on Christmas Eve is the worst for you as a company because nobody's paying attention. So we decided in February to do a live event with our community and to pitch them the Series B as we pitched to investors, fully transparent. And we actually had a ton of views. I think the deck was viewed more than 100,000 times. So that was very successful.
Which was the publication that was announcing the Series B before you had planned to do it?
So Forbes, and
Forbes.
honestly, yeah, Forbes, and they're doing their job, and they did pretty well. I don't know how they got the information, but yeah, and we're still continuing to work with the journalists that did that because you can only respect. He's done it well.
Yeah, for your Series B, how much did you fundraise and what valuation?
Series A was 26 million, and Series B we raised 150 million at a valuation of 1.5 billion. So in total, in 2021, we raised 181 in 3 rounds. So all in the same year.
I think by any metric, that's a very successful fundraise. Does raising this amount of money make you anxious in any way?
No, because that was the plan in the sense that we knew that what we're building is very hard to build. We're building data infrastructure. It's going to take time. And you want to have that kind of money to build that. And infrastructure means most of the revenues will also come from enterprise. So before you get a ton of revenues coming, you need to work a ton on making reliable infrastructure, and it's going to take time. So we knew that, yeah, we need to raise a lot, give us a lot of time, be also capital efficient. That's what we do. And in the end, the next step for us could be IPO.
That's awesome. Do you have a timeline for when you envision that happening?
It depends on so many things. So can't commit to anything.
I'll be looking forward to it. Ringing the bell is something very exciting for founders. Thanks for sharing that fundraising journey. Incredible ups and downs and a crazy Christmas, derailed family Christmas. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the COO role. So you're one of the co-founders and the COO at Airbyte.
Yep.
How do you define your role as a COO?
I think my role hasn't fundamentally changed from the beginning. It was really filling the gaps and the most important, impactful gaps for the company. And so for a time, I've been leading typically developer community marketing, support, and finance. Then we started building the exec team. And so we recently hired a VP finance. So now finance is with that person. Then we hired a CPO. Now we put support within product because we wanted that direct feedback loop into a product. I've become more and more focused on marketing and development community. At one point, because we're entering a stage where we're scaling, we'll be thinking about bringing in a head of marketing and a head of DevRel. So at that point, what are the other gaps that we have that it needs to be filled? That's conversations we're having with my co-founder, Michel. And we have ideas. As a founder, you're pretty strong on 0 to 1 projects. So handling with a SWAT team all 0 to 1 projects could be one. It's all about playing to strengths and playing to the company's deepest need. So that's on Airbyte side. By building a strong exec team, typically we have very pragmatic processes. And so if I take another example, like Stripe, they brought a COO and they were into scaling mode. And so that COO was really focused on process because that was the biggest gap they wanted to fill. So for me, the COO is a gap finder, if I can say, and that is good operationally, that can adapt to the need.
So finding gaps and closing them.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Do you think other CEOs in the industry have a similar view on the role in terms of finding gaps and filling them up, or do you see variations out there when you talk to people?
I think every company has a different type of CEO. So that's my approach to it. I'm sure like in your podcast, you'll learn about different approaches to that. And I'm sure like, for instance, the Stripe CEO who wrote a great book, if you want to learn about the processes, would have a different approach to that too. Yes. For me, it was more like a framework where a CEO doesn't have a definite ownership in that sense because it can be very different. In the end, it's what the company needs most. And you have companies that have brought a CEO to complement the CEO. And I think the CEO in the end is as good as its exec team. So it depends how they structure the exec team. All of that is very different.
Uh, do you view things differently than, let's say, a CEO out in the industry who was hired later and not one of the founders?
I think being a founder makes a huge difference in the sense that it will be always the company first before yourself. And that is not what non-founders exact it will be for them. It will always be them first and the company is at the same level or second, in the sense
Mhm.
that if they don't get something out of it, as a founder, you already have something out of it. You have your equity. So it's all about making the most out of your equity. And so sometimes, like, typically, an exec at my level, if that person wasn't a co-founder, typically might have pushed back to hire a head of dev or a head of marketing, which I'm owning today. But on my side, it's more like, what is the right time? What is the right timing? Is it the right timing? It's not about me. It's about the company. And I think that's makes a huge difference in the end.
Anything in particular that helps you prep to be a CEO?
I think it's the same for a CEO or COO in the sense that the company like evolves very much, and so you need to be the ones that grow the most in the company. Your role as a CEO will change, and at one point you'll put processes in place that are very effective and then will become obsolete after 6 months. So being able to take a step back, that is the hardest when you're into the operations. Taking a step back and say, okay, no, this is not working anymore. And I know that sometimes I would say that's part of a struggle for me, always pushing as much as we can with the current process, but then that doesn't work anymore. Let's change that. So that would be one thing, definitely.
Do you think Tim Cook is a better COO or a better CEO?
Am I obliged to? I think you can see that there was a lot of revenue maximization since Tim Cook has joined. There are like less moonshot projects. Like the car was really like one, but it got stopped. The Vision Pro is logical. It's not like a big moonshot goal. Yes, I would say a lot of innovation in it. So I think he's definitely brought a lot of value to the shareholder that nobody can deny. And you still have some innovations. People would say the Apple Watch is not really something great. Sometimes there was something surprising. The AirPods was something great. Like they didn't expect it themselves.
Do you think the AirPods are a new innovation or is it more incremental?
No,
The AirPods, yeah.
all of them has been in the end was incremental, but same. That was the same for iPods. They define a new UX, and that's what they did with AirPods. So we cannot say it's just the market size is a bit different, but what they did with the AirPods is what they did for the iPods in the end. Like everybody now is using AirPods or equivalent.
It's a huge product, very
Yeah,
successful product, but is it more an evolution of what we've
yeah,
seen or is it a complete new moonshot? A new moonshot could be something in AI.
yeah.
Maybe that's one of
Well,
the big
Siri,
things.
let's not talk about Siri.
Yeah, not Siri, but maybe the next evolution of this. I've heard rumors that Apple might be working with OpenAI. Maybe we can ask this question again in a few years, maybe in 3 to 5 years when you IPO, and I'll ask you the same question again. Is Tim Cook a better CEO or COO? That'd be a pretty fun thing to
Yeah.
talk about. On this topic of AI, do you think advancements in AI do anything to the roles of COOs or other roles in the company?
I think the impact of AI can be very cross-functional, like in the company. So either like there are tools where it can be leveraged by almost all teams. So as a CEO, you want to find leverage for your company, and in building leverage, to be honest, is one of our 4 core values at Airbyte. Those are things that I feel all execs are looking at. If you're a good exec, you look at it because you want to build leverage for your own organization. CEO here might be thinking right now I'm really owning marketing DevRel community, so I'm focusing on leverage for that. Other CEOs might be thinking across cross functionally, depends. But I think everybody needs to look at what is being built right now.
Any initiatives, tools, or new projects that you're working on or touch AI when it relates to operations and giving the company more leverage?
There are two types of projects. One that will release a preview very soon is we enable our community to build connectors with no code, with a connector builder UI for that. And we'll release an AI version where you just put the API link and we auto build the connector for you. That's pretty game changer because as a company, you always have custom sources that you want to integrate with. The second part is to do AI, you need data movement too. You need to centralize the data somewhere. On our side, we've been integrating with vector database destinations more and more. And now we released a Python library to give you more ability to manage your data for AI purposes too. And I would say like with AI and data movement and data, anything data, the thing is before AI, usually it's human interacting with the data. So if there's a data quality issue, if there's anything which is an issue with your pipelines, for instance, the engineers will look at it and say, oh, they catch the issue and they'll fix it. But later on, if AI is to make decisions in an autonomous way, they might not see some small issues or some missing data or something like this and make wrong decisions. So I think like data quality and the ability to support all your data sources becomes more and more important because you don't want to be missing any sources for a better decision. So I think like AI will put more pressure on the data ecosystem. So on our side, we have giving tools, but also giving tools to support more sources, but also supporting all the destinations for you to build whatever AI operations you want to do.
So more sources, more destinations, and more
Yeah.
reliability are
Yeah.
very important for this age of AI when it comes
Yeah.
to data.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about team management. Obviously, that's one of the areas that you focus on. You mentioned backstage about something called fighting entropy. What do you mean by that, and how does that look like at Airbyte?
So there are different kind of features. I think that's a framework actually from Apple, where you have like star features, like the features that are very sexy to the practitioner or the user end user. Then you have just useful features. You have fighting the entropy features, which are where you want to avoid feature creeping, keeping a consistent user experience. You have catching up to the competition features, and you have preparing the future features. So fighting the entropy is really that. It's if you have both bottom up and top down motion as we have at Airbyte, in the sense that we're with open source, we're being used by the practitioner directly. And our goal is from the practitioner go to the buyer and have that top down motion. We call it the hamburger approach. And so you need to have a great UX. And for that, you need also to fight the entropy at that point. Newcomers, new users are not lost with all those enterprise features or advanced features.
I see. And I suppose entropy is the natural state at any startup. It's a
I think so.
particularly more entropic within a data pipeline, data reliability, data movement company.
Yes, there's so many options. So like every API, every source is different, all of that. So you need to abstract it a bit. For instance, building reliability for data movement is not an easy thing. It's not reliability is not only how engineering builds a product, it's really all the features around the product to make sure what you get is what you expected, but what you expected is the same, but this is depending on the API source that doesn't support this, then we need to build around it. So there's a ton of work there.
What's your approach to executive communications? I know this is something very important at Airbyte. You think about this a lot. Can you share your perspective on this?
Yeah, so we have WBR, so weekly business reviews, which are essentially exec meetings every Tuesday. And what happens is that we have both an asynchronous update and a synchronous one. And so the asynchronous update is every exec for their department needs to fill the top three highlights, the top three concerns, and top three priorities for at least one day prior to the meeting, so on the Monday, and also add discussion topics for any questions they have, any ideas they want to share. And we do that one day prior. So that gives us time to also look at the updates of every other department, and it's a Google Doc, so we can comment on it and start addressing that. And the day of the WBR, it lasts 1 hour. We take 5 minutes on the follow-ups. Sometimes we have follow-ups from the last week's one. And on the metrics, we have our exact metrics that we go over together. And then we spend 15 minutes on those updates, where we talk about questions that haven't been responded to or highlights that we want to do there. And then we spend 40 minutes on discussions that our chief of staff have prioritized by discussing with the CEO, which one we want to address during those 40 minutes. And this enables us to be very tight, where we can be vulnerable. We're talking about our concerns, all of that. There's no gap of communication between us at that point. So when you have feedback on something we do on another department, like on engineering, you can ask a question. And it's really like this, where we're not pointing fingers. It's just that the exec team is your first team.
Who is part of these WBRs? Who sits in these meetings?
We have CEO, myself, head of engineering, VP engineering. We have also one of the directors of engineering who brings a lot of value. We have head of sales, head of finance, head of people, chief of staff.
Initially, when you were thinking about this approach to exec communications, how do you get people comfortable in being vulnerable and sharing things? And how do you build some accountability into this? Did you talk to other founders, other companies, how they do this? What gave you the inspiration to do it? And also, what was the approach you took? How do you learn about this?
So this format is the end result of many iterations. And I think when you see others just sharing their top 3 concerns, it's weird not to have concerns. Like, okay, if you have 3 top highlights, 3 top priorities, no concerns, wow, okay. Everything going good? Great. Are you sure? And so I think sharing the top concerns created that safe space for like vulnerability and sharing all of that. I would say that's the main thing. Before that, we didn't have, it was just open-ended, just put your update. But since we've done this structured 3 highlights, concerns, priorities, I think it helps a lot on that point. Also, at one point, most of the discussion topics at the very beginning was coming from Michel and me. And so what we said is, well, we expect everybody to bring at least one topic. And then so everybody was bringing a topic or question, something like this. We never had to say that again. Like sometimes some exec don't bring any topics, but they know they can do it now.
And you said there's a bit of a follow-up in the next meeting for the previous meeting. What does that look like? Do you set goals in these business reviews?
We sometimes have action steps, yeah, definitely. So then the action steps that are written at the end of the meeting becomes the follow-ups for the next week's meeting.
What about action steps that require more than a week to implement or to do? How do you handle those?
At that point, we can say in the follow-up, okay, it's going to take, this is my ETA to get an answer to that.
I see. In terms of frequency, it's weekly. Do you see that changing anytime soon? Something's more frequent or less frequent?
No,
It's just right.
I would say those are just great meetings today. They provide a ton of value. So no, weekly is definitely a good frequency for us.
Talk to me about how you build a team with high talent density at Airbyte.
The culture of Airbyte is really a culture of empowerment and talent density, because we believe that's how you are the most impactful. That's how a team of 95 people, we are 95 people, we can do much better than our main competitor, which is there are 800, 900 people. Empowerment is a lot of ownership, a lot of freedom and responsibility. The Netflix framework on that is really great. We've been a bit inspired by this. And talent density, so high talent, they're only really impactful if they're empowered to do the things they think is right, will be impactful. So the issue with tendency, like people understand tendency only as, wow, this is the best team you ever worked with. And to be honest, that's what we strive for, but it doesn't come for free. Tendency says that in the end, you want only A players, but recruiting is never perfect. So you'll always end up recruiting a bit of B players. What we say is that the manager's job is to coach the B players, set the right expectation, give the right feedback, so that they have maximum chance to become an A player and perform as well as the rest of the team. And if that doesn't happen, then at that point we need to part ways. So with talent density, there always comes a level of natural attrition. And so one of the things we do, we're being very explicit on that. Like on the first day, we do onboarding on the culture side. We talk about the four values, but also talk about empowerment and talent density. Our promise is that it's never a surprise. You'll never be surprised. If you don't have feedback or these kind of things, go for it. And on the other side, if you want to be promoted, same. It shouldn't be a surprise. Start owning more and it won't be a surprise to anybody when you get promoted. And there are metrics we have, and I'd say a bit of process that we have on the recruiting side to maximize talent density. The first one is, and that's just an indicator that we had, where in 2022, we hired a lot. And I think that was, when discussed back with Michel, that was a bit of a mistake because the ratio of interviewees on offers that we gave was 10-1. And now we are at 30-1. And I think that shows the high expectations we now have. Like we give 3 times less offers than before. So we look at this metric. And the second one is we use, for instance, a greenhouse for ATS. And on greenhouse, you have scores like strong no, no, yes, strong yes. And we cannot make an offer if there isn't at least one strong yes. This is not a champion. So if somebody has only yeses, all yeses, nobody is saying no, we don't make an offer. We need a strong yes. And so that's our way of implementing talent density.
That's really good. So you have the 4 ratings: strong
Yeah.
no, no, yes, and strong yes. And you need at least one strong yes to make a hiring decision. So that's great that you were able to go from a 10-1 to a 30-1. That's pretty incredible. And it's also nice that you have like a framework around this. I'm not sure I've heard of people having a similar kind of framework to explicitly manage talent density.
Clear, the 30-1 is not a goal, but it was more after the fact. And we saw that it means higher expectations, let's say. But
That's
that
right.
wasn't the goal by itself.
Makes sense. In the No Rules book by
Yeah.
Reed Hastings in
Yeah.
Netflix Culture, he talks about this idea of asking a manager whether you would fight to keep an employee. Do you have
Oh, yeah.
that? What's your
Yes.
thoughts?
Yeah. We have 4 values: CEO of your own projects, building leverage, winning as a team, and empowered by your users. Those are the 4. And when we do performance reviews or we have a development cycle and a performance cycle, every time it's really triggered towards our values. And at the end, for the manager review, we ask this: would you fight for the person? We do the keepers test as well, in addition to the values.
When I read it, I was quite excited. I was like, that's a very simple way to really get down to
Yeah.
things. It's, would you fight for this person? And if the answer is yes every time, then yes, this is great. Let's switch gears a little bit to talk about more in terms of open source product growth. One of the functions that you manage today is DevRel. And you're working on an open source product. How do you manage developer expectations with an open source product, but also that has a commercial side to it?
Great question. The way we approach it at Airbyte, I think it's very different for every company, but our philosophy at Airbyte is that the open source product is here. We're maximizing on time to value for the practitioner to move data from A to B. So it's really for the practitioner use case. As soon as you need team-based features or like organization features targeted towards the organization, those are not part of the open source. Open source is really for us for a very small team to address the use case. But if they want to scale or they want to have user management, RBAC, SSO, more monitoring because they need scaling or scalability features, then that is, we see open source as really the bottom up. So the lower bun of our hamburger. And as soon as you start scaling, our goal is every company should be paying at that point. That's the end goal. So I think like in terms, it translates pretty well for the community in the sense that every time we make the connectors better, everybody benefits. Anytime it's about moving data, everybody benefits. So I think that resonates pretty well with the community. One thing we don't want to do typically is arbitrary cap on a feature for the in open source. I think that is really not welcome by the community because they don't understand it's really at the point it's very capitalistic. Oh, okay, you can have 20 connectors in open source and not what? Don't do that. We understand like some companies, I think our biggest open source users are moving tens of terabytes, but we're discussing with them because they need more. So at one point, they'll convert. That's the goal.
So if I understood correctly, the reliability improvements, the connectors, those are for the practitioners. So regardless, everyone gets the benefits of those.
Yeah.
And it's only when you're clearly running a company, you're running a team, and you need some of these business company features, then those are the ones that your team builds and ships. You monetize on that aspect of it.
Exactly. And at that point, you can either use the cloud version or the self-managed version. So we have a paid self-managed version for that too.
Got it. Many founders of open source projects, they may not have had experience managing an open source project, and some of them are scared to launch a product or a project because of that, right? There's a whole community management aspect to it. What was your experience and what advice do you have for people who are working on open source projects?
I think your goal is to create trust. And there's several ways to do that. The first one is you want proximity. And so you want to create that Slack or Discord, and as founders, be there, and invite them to join and be there. Try to respond to all questions asked. Second one is you want to show so they can believe, oh shit, they're moving fast and I can believe they can do it. And so that means that you need also to be very transparent on your vision because they need to buy in your vision. So that's the first thing. Like what we did, we had a public handbook and you had all the strategy laid out in the handbook. So our competitors could see it. Anybody could see our strategy. And our goal here was really create that buy-in. And we were fine doing this because with open source, if you have a bottom-up approach where it's a winner take all, because there's a network effect where the more contributors you have, the more active your community is, the more attractive you are to new users or contributors. So that's what we wanted to do, create this. So big vision, then proximity, velocity, and yeah, that's how we created the trust in the end.
I see.
So
So
that's yeah. So in the end, that's you're not don't think about no revenues right now. Just think about having that virtuous cycle with the community.
so it's about trust, and you do that by being fast, so velocity, being transparent with your
Yeah.
community, having a big vision, sharing it. Do you and your team have open source experience prior to starting Airbyte?
Nope. Nope. So anybody can do it, definitely. I think it's just it's common sense in the end. If you want people to participate on it, then you need to be transparent. That's it.
Who built the first version of the product?
We were a team of five. So Michelle, me, and three founding members or engineering leads in the end. And yeah, we're five.
As your core initial team just build the first version of the product and just launch that.
Yeah. It took us a bit less than 3 months. Yeah.
That's impressive. What are the challenges of building a product like Airbyte that is not obvious to people?
When we launched the first version, we had, I believe, 5 connectors. The product wasn't there at all. We got a lot of traction because we showed the initial version of the product, very limited one, but the vision resonated the most. And then every week we were on Slack showing what we released that week. Now we're doing on a monthly basis, but at the time it was weekly. And our goal was really chip so that we show that velocity and people get excited and they think, oh, might be able to do that. That's what we want the perception to be.
Airbyte has a few different product offerings. I have some questions about those. Can you share the product offerings that you have today?
Sure. So we have Airbyte open source, so self-hosted. We have Airbyte's enterprise, which is a self-managed, so it's a premium version of the open source. Very differentiating in the sense that the only alternative to that is really building your own. And then we have two products in cloud. We have Airbyte Cloud and Airbyte Teams, which is the, if you want, the cloud version of enterprise. So with more enterprise features. So in the end, we can cater to SMBs, mid-market, and enterprise on both sides, cloud or self-hosted.
So when we spoke last time, you mentioned that you view these different product offerings as having a sort of custom path to product market fit. As in, you look at each product almost as if its own thing with its
Yeah.
own go-to-market, its own set of features. Can you tell me about that perspective?
So in 2021, we did those 3 fundraising rounds and growth was amazing on open source. we definitely had product market fit. And so we started working on Airbyte Cloud. And Airbyte Cloud is very different in the sense that that's where all the competition is. Nobody was doing self-hosted or open source. At that point, the product market fit is very different because to have product market fit on open source, you just really needed to be much better than building your own. That's the alternative. And then at that point for Airbyte Cloud, it was being better than the existing solutions, one of which is 7 years older than yourself. So that makes it very different. Like I don't know if you know the notion of blue ocean and red ocean. Blue ocean is nobody else than you, and red ocean is okay. That's many sharks, a lot of blood, and cloud was definitely a red ocean. And for instance, the enterprise, self-managed enterprise, is more blue ocean because same self-hosted at that point. And so what we see is different sales cycle, different conversion rates, all of that. And for a cloud to build a strong, very strong product, it took us quite a while. And so we had to learn that again when we saw open source growing very much, but cloud struggling a bit. And now it's like cloud is catching up bit by bit. So yeah, we got there in the end, but it wasn't this, it took us a while.
Yeah, to me, this concept is quite interesting because even we're saying, okay, Airbyte is the data movement company or ELT, TL, all these things. It's still too broad, right? So you have to look at the individual products and then really figure out how it fits with the market. The open source product is for the practitioners and they want a certain set of things and you build for that. But then the cloud version is not just what people want, how they use it, but it's how the market looks. So I like that idea of looking at things in a more custom, tailored way to each product.
And the audience is very different. Like the open source users is very different from a cloud user too.
That's right. If you were to go back, which product offering would you launch first? And what would you do differently if you started again?
It's hard to say because there's two perspectives to it. One is building a Airbyte cloud made us expert at running Airbyte and building a very strong Airbyte enterprise offering. Engineering wise, I would tell you like what we did in the end, we were lucky, was the right choice. Revenue wise, you'd say if we started with Airbyte enterprise, that was a blue ocean as well. We might have gotten more revenues faster, like higher revenue growth in the short term. Because we raised that much in the end, it gave us the ability to build the right product and enough time to build the right product, which worked out in the end. But let's say we have raised a lot less. Then I would tell you maybe option two would have been better.
So yeah, I guess fundraising can change the strategy you take,
Yeah.
and maybe it should definitely change the strategy. You have a framework. You talked about having green deals, yellow deals, red deals. What does that all mean? Does it relate to blue ocean and red ocean, or is it a completely separate meaning?
No, it's more about product maturity in the sense that where you're not building a data infrastructure is very hard in the end, as I mentioned, and provide highly reliable, highly performing connectors for every sources is very hard and every destination as well. So what happened is that for deals that we knew we could cover the use case very well, we call that green. So that means green, we should not lose any one of them. That's our goal. Yellow is we can cover their use case very well in the next month or two. We're just missing a few things. And red deals are we won't be able to cover them like in the next 3 months. So hopefully, yeah. So and on connectors, you have P0 connectors are essential and are nice to have connectors. So depending on which one was what, you could be a yellow or green or red. And that informed us the first conversion rates to close and win the deal is very different on all three. And also it showed us the difference between a red ocean and a green ocean, a blue ocean. So for instance, in cloud, when you are in yellow and in red, it's much harder to win against an existing solution that is for them, I'm sure, a green deal. But if you're on something where you're the only one providing the solution, or that's such differentiators that they can wait, you can close red deals. So for enterprise, we could close red deals and tell them, okay, give them a roadmap on when we get what they need in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Does the categorization include mostly product features, or are there also things like, oh, like this company needs certain certifications or certain,
Yeah.
so it's all of it, right? Features
Yeah.
and possibly how you deliver the product to the customer.
Yep, exactly.
What are the biggest barriers to growth today, you think?
Airbyte open source is at I think 0.6 or 7 today, and we're working very hard on the 1.0. And so I'd say that the whole team is really very much focused on that, and also to have an enterprise GA same launch. So this is coming very soon. Like this is something we'll start communicating in the next month or so. And I feel like that's the main thing today. And 1.0 means reliability, but it also means golden path to contribute, making it much easier to contribute, all of that. So the contributor experience, not only the user experience. So that's a full focus right now. And then we also focused on AI. So bringing more vector databases, unstructured sources, addressing that AI use cases. And soon after that, we'll look at reverse TL. Like for Airbyte, we say data movement platform and not ETL platform because ETL was always just the first step. Our vision is to cover all data pipelines and everything that is on top of the data pipeline. So data quality, privacy compliance, all of that.
So that would include things like reverse ETL and all
Yep,
sorts of data movements from
exactly.
anywhere to anywhere.
Yep.
Okay, this is maybe not Airbyte related. So aside from Airbyte, what are you most excited about, whether it's in tech, in the market, or in your personal life? But you can't say anything with Airbyte.
I've got 2 kids, 9 and 7. Every year is extraordinary. So I'd tell you, like, startup takes a lot of your life, so the rest is then you want to spend with your family. So it's as simple as that.
Family is it's the most important. Any call to actions you have for this audience?
I'll say one thing I say to the new employees of Airbyte is own your growth. Don't wait for your manager to tell you how to be coached, where to be coached. Be proactive and tell them, like, I want to be coached there. I think that's where I can benefit the most. So,
And how do people find Airbyte or you?
well, on LinkedIn, John Lafleur, either one, John at airbyte.io.
Awesome. Okay, that's all we have time for today. This is a fun conversation. Really, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jimmy. My pleasure.